Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live on CBS Sports Network, turning our attention for Inside the Matchup. Big game breakdown for USC and Notre Dame. Now, it is a rivalry with a murky future, but we're going to put all that to the side because we're concerned about the Jimmies, the Joes, the X's, the O's, the way this game is going to be played out. Now, I want to start with a really, really fun quarterback matchup. So let's start with our quarterback. Let's go Danny, Bud, Tom. How do you look at these two quarterbacks, what you've seen so far, both Jaden Maeva for USC and CJ Carr for Notre Dame?
I think both have over-exceeded expectations. At least with Jaden Maeva, we thought, hey, he's going to take that next step. It's Lincoln Riley. He had spoken highly of him. We saw a glimpse of him last year, but I think even he has played better than I think you could have hoped for a USC team. And then with CJ Carr, there was a tight competition in camp. How is he going to look? He comes out against Miami, and they played a little bit tight to the vest. Remember the first couple series, they're throwing a lot of bubble screens, keeping him, pretty tight reins on him. But he's playing as good as anybody out there. So, and it helps to have a run game like they do, but he's managing the system. He's seeing the field well. He's getting good protection. He's showing good mobility. I think CJ Carr has probably been one of the best surprises of the true first-year starting quarterbacks. He's playing as good as anybody. He's playing as good as a lot of veteran quarterbacks, too. It's a fun matchup.
Yeah, Danny, I was going to say, CJ Carr is playing better than almost all of these returning guys we thought maybe had a chance to level up and get to get high in the NFL draft. And after that kind of shaky week one against Miami, which in hindsight turns out it was his first career start, and two, Miami's defense is really, really good, guys. He has looked elite. He as a recruit was never afraid to make big time throws, and he has continued to do that. He's actually aggressively pushing the ball down the field. He's dropping it in a bucket. Man, I don't know who else you think in the country is actually playing better right now than CJ Carr. Maybe it's Maeva for USC. Maybe it's Simpson for Alabama, but maybe it's Mendoza for Indiana. But the list is quite short, and he certainly belongs on it.
I think if you're asking me which one I take for the future, I'm taking CJ Carr. If you're asking me which one I want right now, I'm taking Maeva because, CJ Carr has been playing great the last few weeks after a slow start against Texas A&M and Miami. But the fact of the matter is CJ Carr had a slow start against Texas A&M and Miami, the two best teams that Notre Dame has faced this year. Even in USC's one loss this season at Illinois, it certainly wasn't on Jaden Maeva. He played very well in that game. It's their defense that could not get off the field, and he played well again last week against Michigan when they were able to play much better and get probably their biggest win of the Big Ten era. So I don't think Maeva is as talented as CJ Carr. I don't think they have the same NFL futures, but I also think he has a lot better players around him, particularly in the passing game. I think if you stack up USC's receivers with Notre Dame's, I think I know which way the three of you would all lean as to who has the edge in that department. So I think that has helped him. I think he looks really good in that offense. And I think for this one matchup, I give Maeva the edge. Doesn't mean he's going to play better than Carr because Carr may outplay him this week, but I just think overall I lean Maeva right now.
Is it the best, just like snap call nods, best quarterback matchup on the board for week 8?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah. But
it's one of the best of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll see. Hopefully it lives up to it. Look, there's an interesting storyline, but I want to hear from you first on this because you often do a good job of helping us put in context some of the raw numbers. So let me give you some raw numbers. After a really hideous start to the season, here is what Notre Dame's defense has done the last 3 times out. Just 13 points allowed in the first half, 0 in the second. Then game number 2, 7 points allowed in the first half, 0 in the second. Game number 3, 7 points allowed in the first half, 0 in the second. That is 0 second half points allowed the last 3 games and just 27 total points allowed over the last 3 games. So Bud Elliott, I ask you, is Notre Dame's defense fixed? Has it gotten better? Or is that just the aspect of playing against opponents that you are more favorable matchup against Arkansas, Boise State, and NC State?
So, Chip, I think they have plugged the leak. The boat is no longer sinking. I don't know if it's ready to sail around the globe yet. Really, if you look at it, Notre Dame had the unfortunate luck of playing what, in my opinion, are probably the 2 best offensive lines in the country in Miami and Texas A&M in weeks 1 and 2. And honestly, Arkansas has a pretty nice offensive line this year as well. Purdue does not. Boise certainly does not. You saw USF. You really kind of punked them on national TV early in the season. And I don't think NC State's offensive line is particularly great this year. So Notre Dame, like finding a way to get home with its defensive line and not having to ask its younger secondary this year to cover for quite as long has been the most important part of this turnaround, I think, for the Irish. USC is it's definitely not quite as good up front as Miami and Texas A&M, but they still have a lot of firepower on the outsides, and their offensive line is decent enough. They clearly blocked Michigan last week.
All right, so if we're going to think that the Notre Dame defense has taken a step forward, Tom, how do you think that Notre Dame fares in this setup, which is, again, like we talk about the importance for USC, Notre Dame's college football playoff hopes after starting 0-2 really ride on being able to take care of business. We'll do best bets on Thursday, obviously, in our locks episode. Notre Dame's a heavy favorite here at home, or at least by more than one score. Do you agree with the assessment that they are the team that should be out there as more than a touchdown favorite?
Well, first of all, I will say with a bold proclamation that Notre Dame's defense will allow a point in the second half this week because the USC offense is much better than any of the ones they faced in their last 4 games. So I have a hard time seeing a shut on the second half. As for the spread, I think that if you just look at the two teams as pure neutral site, no, Notre Dame should not be nearly this large of a favorite over USC. The problem is USC on the road has been a very different team than USC at home under Lincoln Riley. This is a team that is barely over 500 when they have left the column or the confines of the Coliseum in Lincoln Riley's tenure. They're giving up over 34 points per game when they are on the road. So it's hard to imagine that they are, going to be able to really get the stops that they need. But the good news is, based on what I saw last week against Michigan, the USC defense, especially up front, looked fantastic in that game. Now, maybe that says more about Michigan's offensive line in the long run than it does about USC's. We'll find out this week. But if that defense that showed up last week is the same one they take on the plane with them to South Bend, I do think the Trojans will be able to make this a very good game because we have to see if Notre Dame will be able to run the ball so effectively against this USC defense as it has against other people that aren't named Miami and Texas A&M.
Yeah, I mean, this is the best running back tandem in the country, potentially. Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price that they're going to have to defend. So that obviously comes into play, and that's going to help CJ Carr. And then on the other side of the ball, you have to consider with the injuries that USC has been dealing with along the offensive line, and now all of a sudden their running back depth has been decimated as well. Unfortunately, USC is going to be playing a little bit shorthanded. So that's something that I think is coming to play in this line too. And we'll find out just about how deep USC goes. But I do worry. Defense has been really good. I think this is the best offense they will have faced. And it's going to, seeing them get pushed around by Illinois was one thing, because I think Illinois did on both sides of the ball handle them physically. Maybe it does say more about Michigan, which might be a little bit more concerning, but they were a little bit one-dimensional with Bryce Underwood. Still like him long-term. I still think that's easier to defend than it is going to be against that running game and CJ Carr. That's going to be a big, big challenge for USC's defense.
I also think Notre Dame's defense is better coached than Michigan's defense. And I think if you're Notre Dame, you like having to see USC sort of empty the clip, if you will, against Michigan. Like that was a had-to-have-it game at home for Lincoln Riley. They busted out their best stuff. Not that Lincoln Riley, an offensive genius, won't have more stuff going forward for this Irish game, but certainly Notre Dame has defended them pretty well under Marcus Freeman in years past. I think if you're USC, the key is getting Mekhi Lemon on the slot defender for the Irish. That has repeatedly been a pain point for Notre Dame this year. Mekhi Lemon is basically uncoverable, as Tom's Illini saw in that game. And I don't know that Notre Dame can stick with him one-on-one. So how creative can Lincoln Riley be to get him matched up against that sort of undermanned slot position for the Irish defense?
Yeah, big game. And you mentioned those injury issues. I mean, we're dressing guys at halftime. I mean, we are doing anything that we can to be able to get warm bodies out of the sands. You're selling popcorn. Congratulations. You're on pump block. That's just kind of where we're at for USC. So we'll be sure to keep an eye on all the latest. And again, we'll do our best bets with more injury updates as we know them later in the week on the Cover 3 podcast, youtube.com/Cover3 to watch the locks live.